looking at the registration and rapid assessment form. This form is extremely important and is usually the first form that you will collect more detailed information of the child on. As stated in a previous video, a lot of the time it is not possible to immediately do a comprehensive assessment, so filling this form out to the best of your ability is key. At the top we have information on the case, the date the case was identified and registered, and if at all this was a reopened case. This means this form may be updated at a later stage also, the case ID, the caseworker ID, and the agency that's managing this case. And then it tracks how the child was identified. This is important for us to understand how to better train other sectors, service providers, and communities in being able to safely identify and refer children. In the second section, you have the child personal details. You will see there is some text in pink. Whenever there is text in pink, including in the first section, we ask that you avoid editing the drop-down. This is because we would like forms to be standardized across contexts to be able to look at data at country, regional, and global levels to better inform child protection case management programming. If you need to add a drop-down, that is okay, but do not edit, if possible, the drop-downs that you see in front of you. Going back to the child personal details, you will see that we're asking for the first name, middle name and father's or father's name, last name and family name, and other names or spelling the child is known by, just like in the assigned consent form. And as I said previously, this will be repeated throughout all the forms. Then we ask further details, the date of birth, the sex, the birth registration status, whether the child has ID, their nationality, and their displacement status. We also ask whether the child has disabilities or not. This helps us have an overview of the child's characteristics. We also ask if the child is married or not married, divorced, and so on. And finally, optionally, the ethnic affiliation, their religion, and the languages spoken by the child. Every time you see optional in gray and italics, that means this is not a mandatory field, and you can choose in your context whether to collect this information or not, depending on whether it may or may not be risky for that child and their family to collect it. Then we have the care arrangement of the child, so who the child is being cared for. And if the child is not being cared by one or both partners, then then you would be filling out the information on the caregiver. You will see here on the left it says caregiver information, just like up here on the left it said child. This should also help you be able to get back to the form more swiftly and look at the section and the information in the sections that you may need to look at later on. In terms of the caregiver, we again collect basic information, name, last name, and so on, because we want to know who this person is who's caring for the child. We also ask if they're related to the child or not in any way, and if they are willing to continue taking care of the child, and where this caregiver is a legal guardian or not. That is very important to understand whether work needs to be done in terms of the provision of care and support to that caregiver should be more or less. We collect the information of other members of the household that child is living with here. These are members of the household. These are not necessarily the child's family members. If the child has been is unaccompanied or separated, they may be living with other household members who are not directly biologically linked to that child. And then we have the child protection risks. The child protection risks, we ask that you describe the child's situation and document observations, and then that you please mark the following incidents. It is very important to not modify these incidents. If necessary, really necessary, you may add, but please do not change this. Again, this is important for the purpose of data collection and understanding what the incidents, vulnerabilities, and status in relation to the justice system of the child. A lot of work has been done to be able to create these categories, and we therefore would really like to maintain these as they are. So you will see different incidents, physical violence or abuse, and so on, vulnerabilities, which are specific to the child being unaccompanied, separated, married, and their state of psychological distress, and then, as I was just mentioned, their status in relation to the justice system. Then we look at the family details, the information on the mother, as you can see in the left here, and then we have information on the father. These are collected, especially if the mother and the father are not the caregiver, so that information has not been collected above. You would record it here. This is very important in the case of unaccompanied and separated children. And then we mark any other family member that the child has. They may not be living with a family member, so they might not be part of their current household, but we want to know who they are. Again, this is very important to ensure also family tracing reunification with other family members. And then we mark urgent needs. Is there anything absolutely urgent that needs to be met? And we've divided this in health, safety, care, others, or maybe no immediate needs. We also mark here if the child needs family tracing. This will help determine the pathway we support that child with and what are the other forms that we may need. Finally, we mark the risk level. Guidance on how risk levels are determined is provided in the Child Protection Case Management Guidelines, and tweaks are often done in a specific context. You should refer to coordination and government mechanisms to see what specific guidance there may be. Finally, the caseworker authorizes the form.